Okay, and we are live. I am joined by Rémino. Please introduce yourself and we'll get started.
All right, so hello everyone. This is Rémino, and I'm known to do some stupid, crazy things online, or sometimes just writing, mostly making videos, posting photos, that sort of thing. So that's me.
Well, great. Anyways, thanks for coming on the show. No, joking. So,
I'm
yeah.
finally here. You invited me so many times and I couldn't make it, but
er,
now,
Well, I mean, you've had quite an interesting set of months, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
2018 was a little bit difficult, but we're starting a new year now, so
Right.
let's go for it.
Yeah. So 2018 can eat a bag of dicks as far as I'm concerned as well.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's good.
yeah. But anyway, so uh, just to let people also know, you do live in Japan. Wow, amazing, right? Yeah,
Holy crap!
yeah. How magical is it that you're living in such a wonderful anime-filled
Oh,
rainbows and
like
gumdrops place?
you just go outside, man, and like they shove like sushi down your throat. You have like anime like on every screen in the municipality everywhere. You have cosplayers on every street corner. I swear to God, this is exactly like the anime.
Yes. So
Yes.
everybody should come here expecting it to be exactly like every anime they've ever seen
Oh,
combined, right?
totally. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So anyway, beyond that, I wanted to know when you came to this magical, wonderful unicorn land.
When I moved in 2009. So I came
2009.
in. Yeah, I came from Canada in 2009. And well, I came to Japan a little bit before that, just for a trip. In 2006, I came for 2 weeks in October, November. So I traveled a little bit, like 1 week mostly in Tokyo and the other week mostly in the West. So mostly like Hiroshima, Kyoto, Osaka, like even Fukuoka. And I thought it was nice. I thought I'd give it a go for like 6 months. So in
Right.
2009, I finally came with a working holiday visa, which is something Americans cannot get. Um, so I came in with that. So after 6 months, I renewed it for another 6 months, which you can only do once. You can only get the working holiday for up to a year. So you cannot
Okay.
renew it like it has to be consecutive. So you cannot renew it later in your life. It's like one chance only, which I did. And after a year, I thought, this is not so bad. So I just like kept on living here. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, here I
And
am.
so, what was the initial motivation to visit Japan in the first place?
Well, the thing is, like, I didn't travel much in my life, so I was a big fan of languages. Actually, when I was a kid, I was learning. I was learning mostly like I started with German, some Arabic too, but I kind of forgot everything. And then I kind of stuck with Japanese. I thought that was interesting, and as the years went on, I just started learning a few words here and there. Nothing too solid. I never really studied Japanese at some university or anything like that. I just kind of studied the language here and there because I thought it was interesting. And at some point, I just got tired of Canada. I'm not sure how to say it, but there's not much going on there. So I thought, what if I tried like living in a big place at some point, like maybe Tokyo or at least near it, just see what happens. So I thought, well, at least I know some Japanese, so maybe I should try Japan, and I did, and that's why I came.
All right. Well, that's it's very simple, but I mean that's a great reason more than ever, you know. So, uh, what you said you started studying languages at an early age.
Yeah,
How old were you when you decided to study more than just French and English? Because
I was.
you're from Eastern Canada, right? So
Yeah,
Quebec,
so
Quebec. So
well, I'm from New Brunswick, but I
oh,
say
okay,
Quebec because it's just easier to say anyway.
okay, all right,
Um, yeah, so of course I'm French Canadian with a name like Remy. I mean, you can't go against that. But I started learning languages at a really young age. I was like 6 or 7.
wow,
I was really interested in that.
hmm. Hmm.
Because mind you, where I grew up, like it's very monotonous, right? Like everything is the same, monogenous. I mean,
Hmm.
and like everybody's white, everybody's speaking the same language, everybody thinks the same way. So I've always valued an environment where you have more variety, more diversity.
So you came to
So
Japan in the end.
yeah, so I guess that's
Yeah.
also in line with this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, sure, there are things where like Japan is just Japan, but you have those big like those metropolises, like you have Kyoto, yeah, sorry, you have Tokyo, you have Osaka, and those are like perfect hubs for everybody around the world to come, right? So you
Right.
have those chances to meet people from anywhere. So yeah, so that idea of diversity started when I learned languages when I was like 5, 6, or 7, and I know it's just something that I kind of liked,
Hmm.
and I just stuck with it.
Okay.
So it's to a point that when I go into an environment when it's too where it's too monotonous, I actually feel don't I actually don't feel comfortable for some reason,
Right. Right.
and I want to go to a place where it's like more varied or whatnot. I don't really have a reason for this. It's just how I am.
Yeah. Just like a personal thing that struck you at a young age, so it just sort of grew from there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just like anywhere I can go where you have some diversity, I will go there. So it's not just location; it's also like workplaces. It's also your circles of friends. It's just that I just find it important to have like that diversity or the variety in backgrounds and opinions and thoughts.
Right. Right.
So it's always something that I kind of long for. I always went with this.
Well, that's pretty cool actually. What so what was the first language that you learned outside of the the languages you grew up with? Was it German? You said.
Well, of course, English was the first one
Yeah.
because like where I grew up, everything was French, and believe it or not, like not everybody where I grew up like is able to speak English. It's actually like the majority of the people cannot speak the language, or they can maybe a little bit, but not that much. Um, so I went with English first because I don't know. I just understood that it was like a language that was quite common around the world. So I just went with that. And after that, I just kind of tried different things. So the first one that I tried after English was German. I tried some Arabic, um, and afterwards, I think afterwards was Japanese. But Japanese was not just the spoken language, but also the written one.
Right.
When I finally saw a language, like I know Arabic, they use a different script, but Japanese, like when I saw the kanji, which I didn't know was what was called back then. For me, it was just Chinese characters. Well, I mean, kanji literally means that, but anyway. Um, so I just wanted to know, like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? It must mean something. So, like, we think it's a hard way to write, but I'm thinking, well, for them, they grew up with this, so I guess it's not that hard. It's not impossible to learn. So I just went with that.
Right. Right. Now, is that the thing you studied first? Was the Chinese characters?
Um, I didn't study them. It's just like sometimes I would. I mean, in that time, like I didn't have like high speed internet or anything. I didn't even
Right.
have internet at home, so I was stuck with like, okay, I have a symbol. What's this?
Yeah.
I think at some point, like I bumped into like I had that set of encyclopedias at home that my parents bought, and I was just like spending like hours just like reading an encyclopedia, a bit like what we do with Wikipedia today, right? You just like browse and all that.
Right.
So I was in there, and I think at some point I stumbled upon a list of like simple like Chinese characters and whatnot. I went with this, and I remember a little bit later, and maybe you went through that too, but I bought Mario Paint
Yeah. I
for
did play
the
Mario
SNES.
Paint. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the
That was fun.
instruction manual had the list of katakana and hiragana as well.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't even think about that at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they actually like wrote this and that. They actually said in English like for like to encourage like people to have that I don't know like worldly view or whatever. Like here are some characters and how you read them.
Oh,
So
that's
I thought it
pretty
was pretty
cool.
cool. Just I just went with that.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw Mario Paint. Um, I'm not sure exactly what this was, but in my hometown there was like some sort of traveling Nintendo show, and
Oh, okay.
they set up a lot of booths in the local Walmart parking lot, and they had yeah, they had like different game stations, Super Mario World and Super Mario Paint and other Super Nintendo games that you could try out and play. And one of them was Mario Paint. I remember messing around with like the fly swatter thing and the music making part.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait.
yeah,
Yeah, we all did this. But
yeah.
wait, what city was it?
Sorry, I'm from a really small town, but I just say I live close to Dallas Fort Worth, but it's
Oh, okay.
a really small town called Stephenville, which uh, there is actually one other Stephenville in the world, and it's in Canada. So
Oh,
yeah, I think it's Newfoundland. It's in Newfoundland, maybe. Hmm.
it sounds like a Newfoundland name. I don't
Yeah,
know. So
yeah,
I guess it would be there.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like where I grew up, like it's. I mean, what I feel is that where you grew up is like it was on their way. So they stopped by and they did that thing, right?
Right.
But where I grew up, it was like like all the way like past Maine. Like nobody cares about this. So nobody comes to our town. So I didn't have that chance to have all that Nintendo stuff. But I think like the first Nintendo thing, like the Nintendo fanboyism that I started was to get a Nintendo Power.
Nintendo.
But
Oh, the magazine, right?
the magazine, yeah.
Yeah.
So before that, I got. Remember, there was a time when Nintendo was distributed by Mattel in
Yeah, yeah, right.
the
Yeah.
very early days of the NES. It
Mm.
was distributed by Mattel, and Mattel put out that flyer. It was not a magazine; it was just like a flyer with some game tips and whatever. So I used to get that, and then I got a Nintendo Power. So memories, man.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the Nintendo Power magazine. That was crazy. And also, did you ever buy the NES glove, the Power glove?
I never got that one. I
Yeah,
thought it looked so cool. I wanted to get that,
it
but
was. Yeah,
couldn't find it anywhere.
the best I had personally was the Duck Hunt pistol, which I
Hmm?
thought was magic at the time. I thought, how the hell can this gun shoot something invisible at the screen and it interacts with the screen? So
Oh,
my 5-year-old mind was blown at that point. So, but
me
what?
like I mean that was cool, but I
Hmm,
think like I like so many people, the first thing that really got me glued to the TV was Mario.
yeah,
I swear to God, like that game, I played it so much that people in school were calling me Mario, and not in a nice way. They actually were kind of mean about it.
yeah,
But I don't know. For me, it was that game where like you just like you move in that big world and you can explore stuff and whatever. For me, that was fun.
right,
Um, and yeah, nowadays I'm more into like maybe a little bit more mature games, I guess.
yeah.
Like I did like Odyssey, but it was not like it was nice. It was a really good game, but I actually played better. I'm not sure if you catch what I mean, but um, like since I always like exploration, right? Like I always like even in Japan, sometimes I just go outside and just walk around just to go into some narrow streets, see what's happening there, and like
Yeah,
what
exactly.
is this and that. And I did the same thing in games. So Mario started from there, and more recently, since 2 years ago, I started with Breath of the Wild. That game was, I haven't gamed for like 3 or 4 years before playing that one.
Yeah.
So like I missed all out like the open world and everything. I missed out. Okay, so when I played this, was like I was amazed by this,
What?
the way you could explore everything. Right?
Right. Was that your first like modern open world game?
It was, and also funny enough, it was basically my first Zelda. Like I mean, I played the Zelda on NES. I played the one in SNES, but it never really did anything for me. Like the one on SNES had a lot more text, and in the time I could not read English. That was not helping.
Hmm. That
Um,
was a good way to study English, though, right?
Well, yes
Well,
and no, but like
not not your intention, right?
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, the thing is, like you don't like if you get something wrong, you have nothing to correct you. That's the
hmm,
thing, right?
hmm, hmm.
Because I remember like the first Mario game, like sorry Mario, but your princess is in another castle. I like when I was a kid, I was like, what's a castle? But like I didn't know how to pronounce that, like
Yeah, yeah,
you know. And like it took my parents like 3 days, like, oh, it's castle, you mean? Like, oh,
mm,
okay, I didn't know. Like,
yeah. I remember the first time I learned the word city. I saw it on a Looney Tunes cartoon, and it was written like some dog catcher was driving, and it said like city dog catcher on his truck, and I was thinking, why the hell is he trying to catch a dog, but his truck says kitty dog catcher or something, and then I learned what city was in the not silent sea, but the the sea soft sea it is a soft sea, right?
Mhm.
That sounds like the sound. So uh, even through media like that, I was just that's how I learned a lot of vocabulary on my own. Even in my native language was just through games and TV as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is, right?
Hmm.
The written doesn't really tell you how it's pronounced the whole time, so you bump into those mistakes. And coming back to the gaming, uh, like I noticed a pattern where like, oh, I actually like those games where you're like that, sort of like that lone wolf,
Hmm.
and you just explore everything on your own. So I played Breath of the Wild, then I played Rime on PS4. We have our common friend Kevin.
Yeah.
He came to see me play that game live. I was streaming it, and we both cried when I finished the game. So that was
Wow.
quite an emotional one.
It's rhyme. I don't think I've heard.
Rime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's I seem to like a lot of indie games for some reason. So
Hmm.
Rime is from Spain.
Okay.
After that, I played Celeste. That's from Canada. Uh, you
That's
probably heard of, yeah,
well.
Celeste.
It's free on Xbox
It
Live
is now.
this
Yeah, it is.
on Xbox Gold this month. So
Get it.
all you Xbox nerds get it. If
Get it. Did you
yeah.
get it?
I haven't, but I will download it though.
Or
J-
you'll have to.
it's in my library. Yeah.
Because like you have very tough game, like you wouldn't believe. It makes you swear at every screen. Okay,
Yeah.
Celeste is like that, but it kind of like tricked me into buying it because I thought, oh, those like graphics are nice. It seems to be a nice story. I like the feel of it, so I buy it and I try it and I go, wait, that game is super tough. And it's like they actually tricked me into playing some clone of Super Meat Boy. So, but I played the game, I completed it, and it's such a it, the re, it's so rewarding. I mean, it was such a great experience to play that.
Yeah.
There was that. Then I played. I forgot which ones. Like the most recent one I played was Gris. That's also from Spain, and you just have that really nice like watermark feel of visuals
Right.
and a very nice story as well. And the music is candy to the ear. It's such a beautiful game. Just a couple of hours of gameplay, two or three tops, but
Yeah.
so well done. But
Yeah.
anyway, I guess that fits the kind of person I am, I
Well,
suppose.
well, that's pretty cool because games like Celeste and Grease to some extent reminds me a bit of Mega Man in a way, the old school Mega Man or Rockman games,
Hmm.
and how those were just insanely difficult to play. I remember that my brother and I would just spend hours trying to beat the old school Mega Man games because they had a lot of jump on this block before it disappears and then jump to the next one type of puzzles, right? And I would literally be trying almost pulling my hair out of frustration on some of those. But once you get past that section of the level, you just feel like, oh fuck yeah, I've done it, you know. So
It's just
yeah,
it feels so good. You've done
yeah,
something.
right, right. Yeah, no, I remember I the very first going back to Zelda, the very first one I played was A Link to the Past on SNES, and I loved that game. I loved it, and then the first 3D one was Ocarina of Time, I believe.
Mhm.
And I when the Nintendo 64 came out, I actually didn't buy one until much later, but um, all the games on there just look so much fun. Like Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, they just seem so open. Like you could just explore everything. And you're right, that sort
Yeah,
of feeling, just the freedom that it gave you, because most games up to that point were just kind of follow the line. You know, especially like JRPGs. I played a lot of those, and while there was some exploration in there, it just felt like you were just shoehorned the entire way through. You know.
you have a lot of invisible walls and everything. Like Final Fantasy 15, I didn't enjoy it that much. It was all like boxed in, and it's just like,
Yeah, I
what's
gave
the
up
meaning
on
of
it.
this?
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think that it wasn't the first Final Fantasy I gave up on. I think it was 13, because it just seems so streamlined and boxed in.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah. But yeah. So you actually stream games on your channel, correct?
These days, like I used to do it regularly up to 2017. So, uh, but these days it's quite irregular. Sometimes I just feel like it, and I'll just do it. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Actually, like I'm off tomorrow. Like it's a long weekend, right? So
Right.
maybe I'll do it. But uh, I just go with the feel of it. There was a time when like I really wanted to try to make it grow, make the channel grow, and see what happens. But it's just too much work.
There is a lot of work to it.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I'm not getting paid for this. I need to get a real job, you know.
Yeah.
So, like it's just like after I tried, I'm like, you know what? Like it's much better when I just do it like usual, just for fun, you know.
Right.
And I go through everything I do like online. Like I mean, I've been doing videos for 20 years. I mean, I just have 200 subscribers on my channel, but I don't care. Like it's just for fun that I do this, you know. I just make them when I please. That's it. I don't have to satisfy like a schedule or like hungry viewers to view my stuff. I just do it, you
Yeah,
know.
you just do it for fun. And to be honest, I think that's the best way to grow a channel, is to just have fun with it and see where it goes from there. You know, because if you try and force it, it almost feels a bit fake. You know, that's the feeling I got when I was trying to grow my channel as well. I just
Yeah,
felt kind of fake.
because at some point, like you're no longer doing that for yourself. You're
Yeah.
doing that for others. Okay, like you're trying to get money from it or whatever. You start putting ads or like promos and start doing those like little like contests or I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not if you ever watch my videos, maybe like the first thing you'll notice is like none of my videos ever said like, "Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to be part of a squad."
Yeah, yeah. You,
I
you
don't
never
do
you never
this.
named your audience like Reminites or whatever the
Everybody's saying
yeah,
notification squad now. I'm not sure why, but
yeah, it's I think we're a generation past that, so we're
yeah, yeah, just like like that's what it is. Like it's funny in a way because like there's actually like a one channel that comes to mind. Like I thought was a little bit annoying, so I just stopped watching. I just unsubscribed. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if I subscribe or not because Google will just say, "Hey, how about you watch this?" I'm subscribed from this channel 2 months ago. Like, what? Anyway.
yeah, yeah. I find the recent algorithms that YouTube and Google itself finds to show you new things. Sometimes it's great. Like, well, I've actually found some really nice music or other channels to subscribe to from it, but for the most part, it's like, yeah, you're still not getting this quite right, you know?
No, no, it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, nothing.
It, but at the same time, it's kind of a relief that it doesn't get it quite right, because it's still not sophisticated enough to be. I mean, it's still kind of creepy when you think about it, but
Yeah.
it hasn't reached a threshold to where it's you really think they're watching you. You know, there's a lot of, but especially we were talking earlier before the podcast started about the Google Home and Alexa and things like. A lot of people think that the microphones are always on and listening to you, and and whatnot, and seems a bit conspiracy theory-ish, but who knows how much it's actually recording. You don't know because when it comes out with an ad that's suited just for something that you like, you're wondering how much of that is just tracking what I follow, or is it, how much do they actually get? What how much data do they actually get from you? You know?
And you know that kind of like makes me think about my own career actually, because as you probably already know, I'm a web developer. So
Right.
but I've been doing that for like 20 years. So I've seen quite a lot. When it started was just really like it was innocent. You didn't really have like those like ad networks and everything. I mean, that was like a recent thing with like what was it called? The InfoSeek search engine,
Yeah.
for example. Like they started doing ads, that sort of thing. It was like very new. Uh, Cookies were new as well. It was not something. It was not even something implemented in browsers. So when you think about this, like back 20 years ago, and now today we have all like those like privacy issues and like it's like wow, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
and it's also like funny in a way that like when I started using the web, like I used to write like a log, like there was no word for it back then. There was no blog. Blog is from weblog, right?
Yeah.
And like nobody came up with that term yet. So I was just calling it like a diary or a log, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would just put out like in public, oh, my dad's school sucked, that sort of thing. And it's funny because in that time, like there was so few people accessing the internet that nobody, even if you told somebody, they would not care.
Right.
They
Right.
didn't even understand what you were talking about. Um, but today is like the opposite. Now I'm like, well, now, like for example, on Facebook, uh, I just write stuff that just like kind of like jokes or like anecdotes, that sort of thing. Nothing much about my life anymore because like I'm like, well, sure, there's a privacy issue, but also like, why would everybody need to know anyway? So, so while I'm thinking way, at the same time, like the table kind of flipped because like now you have all those people who just like post everything about their life online,
Yeah.
and I'm just thinking like, have you ever thought like, why
Yeah.
you post this? Like, who's interested in that? Like, even if they are, like, for what reason?
Well, that's why I think people have come up with some theories that though social media, especially to people who grew up with social media, we're old enough to where we remember a time before it.
Hmm.
So when it came about, we thought, oh, this is kind of cool or kind of neat, But
Yeah.
but kids who've grown up with it and are now entering adulthood, it's almost created a sort of narcissistic quality to a lot of people, to where they think that they base their self-worth on how many likes they get
Yeah. Oh,
on
definitely.
Instagram or Facebook or something. And to me, even, I mean, yeah, I've sometimes put up something that I thought, oh, I thought I would get more likes than that, and I catch myself thinking, why do I care about how many people liked it, but for some people that's their whole life, they just they have, there's stories of younger kids, committing suicide because they were bullied on social media or they didn't get enough likes that they thought they would. I thought, what is going through the minds of these people that they obsess over it, and it's
It's too bad because like me and you, like we're old enough to understand like we don't need this,
yeah.
but the younger people don't. Like I mean, we've both went through high school and everything. We both know how it was like. Like you had to be popular or else you'll get kind of get shit on, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
And and you always have like the circle in school where like, oh, they get everything, but like fuck everybody else, that sort of thing. And that's the way it is online as well. And they kind of like it that really caters to people of that age. You look at TikTok, for example, it's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I still don't really even know what TikTok is. I mean, I kind of do. Is it sort of like it reminds me a bit of Periscope. I've never watched anything on
It's
TikTok, but
not
from
like
the ads,
Periscope is.
yeah.
Yeah, Periscope was at least like just like a live thing, a bit like
Right.
Facebook Live, for example, was the same thing.
Right.
But um, No, like TikTok, from what I understand, is people like it used. I think it used to be called Musical.ly. I think it's the same service or was bought or something. I forgot. But anyway, so people like sign up and they can choose to either download a track, a music track that's already available in the app, or just get any video they can think of and get and just use the audio. And to that audio, to just like try to mimic it, try to sing along, or like try to do some faces or whatever. And sometimes like it's really cringy what they do.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
retarded to me.
You
So,
have those compilations online,
yeah,
like TikTok cringe. And I watched this, and I'm like, why am I watching this? I hate this so much.
yeah.
Like, I don't get it. Like,
Well, there was one service that I thought was really kind of cool, and I'm kind of sad that it went away. Was Vine. I thought it was real creative what people were coming up with in a 6 second video.
I liked Vine.
Yeah,
Vine
Vine.
was good.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
miss it.
I think the comedian Will Sasso had some. He actually had some really creative vines where it was just a series of him randomly like puking up lemons. I think in different
I didn't
situations.
see that.
Yeah, if you got, they're on YouTube now. You can definitely
Yeah.
find them. But just like Will Sasso lemon vines, and there's a whole. I think you can find every single one, and they're pretty hilarious.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
but
I'll be binge watching that tonight.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's actually kind of cool getting your insight about the current state of the web since you've had so many years of experience doing web development. So, um, is that how you were able to get your visas into Japan originally? Was through IT?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what it is. Like, funny enough, like the job that I do, IT, like I never really liked it because I
Right.
always wanted to be like actor or writer, more like the on the creative side, right?
Right.
But growing up in New Brunswick, good luck with this, like like I can't even afford going to go at some like expensive university or anything like that. It's too far away, It's too far away. I don't know what it is, like so I kind of got stuck with the web stuff because remember back in the early 90s, 80s, 90s, like that was starting to take off, right? The computers and all that, Windows 95 and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So everybody wanted to work in IT at some point, and then you had those people like who were like total like they were just like shitheads. They didn't know how to like even turn on a computer, but they wanted to work in IT anyway because they just thought they would make tons of money. Uh, but I didn't. Like I kind of knew my way with that, and I just kind of kept going with this. And yeah, so even though it was not something I wanted to do, it did allow me to, you know how to publish my stuff online and to get revenue as well as a visa to come in Japan. So
Right.
that worked, I guess. Although the one thing I always found funny is that if you come as a web developer in Japan, you have to get an engineer visa. They consider you to be a software engineer, and you have to be an engineer visa. But funny enough, in Canada, for me, it would be illegal to call myself an engineer there.
Illegal, like
Yeah,
like a criminal offense if you were to do so.
I'm not sure if it's criminal
Uh,
offense,
or
but
just
it's certainly illegal
yeah.
because the order of engineers in Canada, I forgot the name of the organization, but uh, they're the ones who decide what an engineer is, and an engineer in Canada is technically somebody who's like a civil engineer or like mechanical engineer, that sort of thing.
Right.
So software does not is like it's not something tangible. So for them, it's not engineering.
I see. Hmm. Hmm.
So if funny enough, I cannot call myself an engineer in Canada, but in Japan it's perfectly fine, and I
Yeah.
need to call myself that way to get a visa.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So now you've been in Japan going on. This will be your 10th year now. So,
Yes, 10th year
so,
this year. Yeah.
so have you thought about doing the permanent residency, or are you content with just extending every couple of years? I mean, do you plan on staying forever, or
I plan on staying. Like I don't really have any plans to go anywhere else.
Right.
If I didn't like last year, I had some problems getting a visa. I think it was more like, from what I understand, the immigration has a lot of part-timers, and they're kind of iffy about their job. They don't really know how to do their thing, and like,
Right.
um, so yeah, like I did apply for a permanent residency last year, and it took them almost 9 months to tell me, hey, by the way, you're not getting it. They
Re-
rejected my application. Yeah.
really, really. Okay.
Actually, when I got my visa last month, I got it on, well, I got the postcard to go pick it up on Friday
Yeah.
evening, when I
Yeah.
came back from work. And Saturday morning, I actually got a registered letter. So the guy from the post office actually had to ring my doorbell, the mailman. I had to answer and sign to get that letter from immigration, just to be told that I'm not getting permanent residency. So I have to go back there anytime I want this month or next month, maybe, to know why I didn't get it. They
Yeah.
will not tell you that by phone. You have to go there in person.
In person, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So of course, I do want to get permanent residency. It's not always easy. I mean, if you have a stable life with a stable job and a stable marriage, for example, that's gotta be super easy for you.
Right.
But for somebody working in IT who's single, I went through a divorce last year, second divorce actually, and I also started a new job last year, which, like, apparently I'm, like, we're not sure, like, we may be acquired soon, so we're not sure if we're gonna get,
Bought out or anything.
are we gonna
No.
still gonna have a job or not? So that's up to them.
I see. Yeah.
Um, so, like, that's life in IT. I mean, it's not the first, like, it's a startup, so it's not the first time I had to deal with a startup, right? Um, so, for somebody like me, like, of course, it's not gonna be that easy to get a permanent residency, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
On top of that, I worked for like 3 years as a freelancer, and during that time, I guess, like, immigration thought, oh, he's not paying enough taxes, so no. That's that's
Yeah.
life as an IT worker and as a foreigner in Japan. That's what you get.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually quite enlightening because I've been considering applying for the permanent residency this year.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to renew my visa, start the process of renewing my current visa now, after,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's up in a few months. But I noticed when I joined my current job, which started off as it's a startup, about 3 4 years ago. Um, my they stopped giving me 3 year visas and started giving me only 1 year visas. And I thought,
Oh.
well, that's weird. How can I go back? What's the reason behind that? Because before they were giving me 3 year visas from the get go, and now they've gone back to one. And the only thing I could think of was when I joined the new company with a small number of employees. At the time, it was just 2 employees. Now we've grown quite a bit since then, but um, that's my only thinking is they saw that as a bit more short term in their eyes. I guess I don't know, but they've just continued to give me 1 year visas since then.
Yeah, I would definitely say the size of the company mattered, and also like how much revenue they pay, how much taxes they pay. Uh, and of course, if you're a bigger company, you pay more taxes. So
Right.
there's that. I would recommend, like, if you are considering permanent residency, you've been in Japan for, like, I think longer than me. You've been here for like 10 years,
Con-
15.
Consecutively, it's been about 8 years, but I did go back to the States for about a year. But from the moment I set foot in Japan, yeah, it's been 10 years or more. So,
Okay, well, that I'm not sure. Usually, like, you have to be in a stable marriage for 5 years,
mm,
or been in Japan for, like, some people are very the answer on that. Either 8, 9, or 10 years. I
yeah,
don't know. But yeah, I would say, like, when you go up, like, while you prepare your visa application, prepare your application for the permanent residency, because the application for permanent residency is much easier. You don't have to get that much papers,
okay,
but like, as they process the application, that's when they will ask you for more documentation.
right,
Okay,
right,
so while you apply for the permanent residency, You cannot use that and say, okay, I've applied, so now I can just wait in Japan and see what happens. No, you still have to renew your visa.
Right, right.
So that has to be done in parallel. That's what I did. I did that at the same time. Well, not at the same time. Like I applied for the permanent residency in April,
Yeah.
um, and later when my spouse visa expired in oh no, very early November, November 2nd, I think it was. A week before that, I went to apply for a change of status of residence because I had to change from spouse to engineer. So I went there. They processed the whole thing. It was I don't know what happened. It was a lot of back and forth this time for some reason. But finally, I got my 3 years visa, and then, like I said earlier, like the day later, I just got a letter saying, "Oh, you got the visa, but you don't get permanent residency." So
Yeah. So they sent that in uh, the same document, the postcard, right, or the letter.
no, not
Mm.
not at the same time. I got the postcard on Friday,
Okay.
but on Saturday they actually sent it registered. So like
That.
you have to sign to get it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe you saw it before, but immigration always has that like letter, that envelope that says like immigration office at the bottom. So they
Yeah.
use that envelope to send that to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It seems. Just seems like a kind of a nightmare dealing with that. How is I can't imagine the immigration office in Tokyo. Is that where you have to go, or is in Chiba, right? You live in Chiba?
Well, I could go in Chiba, I think, as well. It may be less busy. I'm not sure. I never tried, but um, yeah, well, I think it's a little bit hell everywhere. But when I used to live in Saitama, I used to go to the one in Saitama.
Right.
It's technically part of the Tokyo one, but they have a branch in Saitama.
Yeah, yeah, that's how Utsunomiya's is. It's Tokyo's immigration bureau, but it's the Utsunomiya branch. So,
Right, there
yeah,
you go. So I
yeah,
went there and it was not busy at all. So I wish it was like that in Tokyo, but maybe I'll try Chiba for once, maybe in 3 years now that I have my visa.
right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, the wait is long, yes, and blah blah blah. So like you kind of make it like a day outing, you lose a day of work, and so you might as well just enjoy it. Um, uh, what was particularly painful this time was last month. There was a lot of back and forth. Um, the first time I applied for my visa in late October, so 2 weeks after I got an envelope, I thought, of course, you freak out because like the visa expired at that point. Okay, you're still allowed to stay in the country for up to 2 months before you get a decision. Okay, but you get the envelope, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting deported. But
Yeah,
that's not that's
that's
not what it was. So I open it and I read it. I go like, oh, they're asking for a translation of my college certificate. I thought, okay, well that I can't understand because it was actually in French. But I also thought, well, it didn't ask for one last time. That's kind of weird.
right.
So anyway, so I hired someone to translate it, make it official with a stamp and everything because Japanese they love their stamps. My God,
Yes, they do.
stamps and taxes. So,
Yeah.
so I got that done, sent it to them, and like a week later, I get a phone call from them. Some guy who kind of sounded like he was kind of in a hurry to finish his work and go home or something. I don't know what it was, but he was just saying like, "Oh, so what was your first job?" And like, well, I wrote it on the resume I gave you, but I did this back in 1998 and blah blah blah, and that sort of thing. So I tried to explain to him what was actually written in my papers because that's another thing maybe you want to know. But uh, since I don't have a degree, I just have a 1 year certificate. I have to prove that I have at least 10 years of experience in IT, but I have 20, so it's not that bad. So
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
because I've done it before, right? So I already had like letters from past employers and everything, both in Japan and Canada. But the stuff that I get from Canada is all in English, of course. So last time I gave that to them to immigration, that was back in 2009 or 10.
right.
And they had no problem. Within 10 days, I got my visa. But this time, the guy was like all like confused or like kind of like in a hurry. And it's like, well, how about you just send us translations for all of the stuff written in English? Jeez, I have like 13 letters in there.
Right.
So
So wait,
I,
they were asking for translations into Japanese for
yeah,
all of it. Weird. I've never
yeah.
heard of them asking for something like
Well,
that before. Yeah.
that right, right. Like so, I asked him, well, okay, first of all, why last time nobody asked for translations? And second, why did you guys ask for those translations the first time you sent a letter last week? And he's like, well, usually we ask for translations, and like he didn't really provide an answer to what I asked. So I said, fine. So okay, I went to immigration in person the next day, and I talked to a consultation first. I say, well, okay. I explained the whole thing, and the lady was like, a Japanese person doesn't really give you often that what the fuck look. But that day I got three of them. So, so the first time, lady was like, "So we asked you translations from like for to Japanese from English." Yeah, English. What? It's like what the? Okay, so she makes me go upstairs. I go upstairs to some other section. I must I must get a an achievement like on an Xbox or something for this because I finally officially visited all the sections in immigration. I've got them all.
Yeah.
So I went there and it was that cute lady at behind the counter and I explained the whole thing again and she goes, well, usually we ask for like you like technically like legally speaking you should be providing translations. I understand that, but at the same time they never asked for any translations before.
Right.
And all of their forms, and even the letter I got like a few weeks ago saying that I didn't get permanent residency, it's all bilingual, Japanese English.
Right.
And I said, well, like, I tell her that, and I say, well, I'm here in person now to know, like, is there anything else I need to provide? Because this is the second time that I'm asked to provide documents, and usually just for a visa, I don't get that much trouble.
Right.
And she goes, well, just give me a minute. So she goes at the back, and she comes back to the counter, and she says, okay, you don't have to provide anything. Are you sure?
Yeah. So that's kind of, yeah. You're getting mixed signals. To me, that just screams the epitome of Japanese bureaucracy and red tape. I mean, like you said, they love their stamps and and faxes here, but just every government office you have to visit, it's an ordeal of some sort. I've found. I mean, just to renew my driver's license, I have to take a whole day off. Just sit at the driving center for 8 hours just to renew my
Wow.
license. Yeah, yeah. I mean, because they make you take a even if you've had a perfect record, driving record, they make you sit in a class, a safety class, and even the guy running the class says he doesn't like being there, but he has to do it because even he has to take the class at some point, and yeah. And I'm just like, does if no one likes doing this and there's no real point to it, why is anyone here? Because I can understand if you've had a wreck or you've had multiple offenses where it would warrant a safety class to take, but it doesn't make sense if you've had a spotless record, But that's required just to renew the driver's license. Thankfully, that's only every 3 to 5 years, I believe. So
That is
yeah.
strange.
Mm, mm.
And even the guy is saying, I don't like this, but I also have to do it at some point. So,
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what he told us because everyone is there just like zombied out. And then he's a former policeman or a current policeman, and he's like,
yeah.
I know no one wants to be here. I don't want to be here. I have to take as well at some point, so that means you do as well. So just sit back, relax, enjoy this video from 30 years ago, and then we'll go about our day. That's pretty much
Now,
how it
now,
was, yeah. So
now I want to see that video. It must be like all like from bubble era. So like
it
everybody
is
like
like
all like big wax in their hair and like.
the hairstyles are hilarious, man. The hairstyles are hilarious, and part of me thought Japan is almost just like at least the U.S. that any safety video you watch at any job or government office, it's always from 30 years ago itself. So it's
Yeah, they just commissioned that at some point and say, okay, we've done that one thing, we're done forever.
right. Yeah.
They will
So
not change it until like the civilization crumbles. They will not do anything about it.
I think Japan's stance on anything is as long as it's been going well for us so far, there's no need to update anything unless we're absolutely forced to do it at the very last minute. You know?
Huh.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah. Have
Hey,
have
Kevin's in the chat now.
Kevin has arrived.
He has arrived. It's getting lonely.
Yeah, he says I've never had that happen with my driver's license. The only time I ever had to do that was when I have a traffic violation to watch a stupid video for 2 hours. Yeah. Do you have a? I think so. The license in colors here. When you get it, the first one it's green, and then the second one is blue, which I have, and then the next one is gold if you don't have any um, tickets or anything. And I think once you hit gold, it's every you don't have to take any more classes or anything. Or if you do, it's really short. But uh, I was in the letter I received. That's what they said is first time renewal 2 hour class. Second time is an hour, and then the third time is maybe 15 minutes or so.
Wow.
Yeah, it could just be Tochigi's driving center. I don't know, but I know just to get the license was an ordeal in itself that took months because of red tape and bureaucracy. So
You know what I want to do now? Like I've started riding a bicycle, and I say started because I literally just started doing that last year. Like before that, like I rode maybe a bicycle 3 or 4 times in Japan before, and that was like back in Osaka.
right.
So and like you have all those like bike sharing things going on these days, like the rental bicycles.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably have some in Utsunomiya as well. Um, so yeah, I've been doing that now, and often like I mean at the beginning, like you kind of like I'm not used to it, so like kind of scared, like I don't know what to go. Will I hit anybody? What if I hit an old person and kill that old woman
Hmm.
just within 5 seconds? What do I do?
Yeah.
And at some point, like you're like, oh, like should I ride on the sidewalk or not? Okay, I'll follow the cars. Like, oh shit, it's a highway now. What do I do? Um, Luckily, I never been on a highway that I was like, those paid highways where like no pedestrians or bicycles are allowed. That
Right.
never happened. But having to follow the car sometimes, like you have to follow their lanes, right? So if like it's the lane that turns left, but you want to go straight, you have to go between those two lanes.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
That sort of thing. Um, but now I'm kind of used to it, so I'm okay. But now since I can do that, and I think like, well, I actually pay attention to stuff around me, so I guess maybe I should try getting a scooter as well, because apparently the 50cc scooters to get licenses for that is super easy in Japan. That's what I heard anyway.
Well, it was different for me because actually I drove a 50cc scooter for a few months before I got my car, and I think maybe it was different for me because I was aiming to get a driver's license to drive a car,
Okay.
and not just the 50cc scooter, but I knew I at least needed some sort of license to drive that, and that in itself, the scooters are fine. They're at least even 50cc scooter will if you're just traveling in your local town, it's
Hmm.
fine. If you're going to be doing any highway travel, rent a car or something because
Yeah.
it's you don't want to go 30 40 kilometers an hour on one of those little putt scooters on a highway. That's because even driving in Utsunomiya in the city, having to cross two lanes to get to the right hand turn lane was felt like a suicide mission on my first time on the scooter. I thought, you know, am I going to be hit by somebody? But traveling, I think it was maybe 20 kilometers. My first ride on that 50cc scooter and making it home unscathed. You're right. It's like you expect a little notification for an achievement. You survived your first attempt, right?
You did
But
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey.
but a- after that, it's very free. It's very freeing to be able to travel at a higher speed, and you can. It just opens up the country so much, so because you don't have to rely on either public transportation or someone else to drive you around. You know, it's more freeing to be able to drive where you want to go. Um, so, of course, it's Japan. If you want to travel anywhere fast enough, you have to pay a fee. So there's toll roads everywhere in the country as well. So
Of course.
yeah.
Actually, it's funny. Like I got a credit card, and with that they sent me an ETC card, and I'm like, ETC card is for like cars, right? Like the prepaid, like they can go on tolled, like a pay on paid highways and stuff. And I'm like, I'm I'm not gonna use this. I don't know why I got one, um, but yeah, like at some point, like I do love the public transportation here. Uh, that's something that when I actually visited Canada last year, and I miss the public transportation so much. Um, because in New Brunswick, forget it, you just have cars, okay?
Right.
A bit like the rest of North America, for that matter. Um, I missed the trains, and I also regretted never learning how to drive. I never learned how to drive, so of course I couldn't get a rental or anything. Uh, so yeah, maybe someday I'll finally learn. I hope.
Yeah. Actually, they have numerous driving schools, at least in Utsunomiya they do. And
Yeah.
I was told an easy way to fast track your getting your license is to go to one of these schools and give the receipt to the driving center to show, look, I've taken a driving test. Didn't do me any good. I still had to take my test at least 7 times before I was able to get my license. And um, the day that I received it, there was a guy working there that or no, he used to work at the driving center, but now he helped a company that needs truck drivers or whatever,
Uh-huh.
help the foreign employees get licenses a quick way. He'd seen me before, and I was waiting there, and even before I took the driving test that day, he told me, "You're back again. Congratulations today." And I said, "What? What do you mean?" He goes, "Congratulations." And sure enough, I passed that day, and I thought, it's all a scam, man. It's all a scam just to get as much money as they can from people. You know, at least in Tochigi. Tochigi is one of the harder ones. Here in Tokyo, you can get it for maybe once or second try. But for a Canadian, you don't even have to do any of that. You can just get your license translated from a one if you go that route, and you don't need to take any driving tests over here.
Cool. I
So
didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah. So
Should have got it in Canada then.
well, yeah. So I mean that's your if you ever want to start driving in Japan, I would say get it done in Canada and then come into Japan and get it translated, because the way the Japanese get their license, you have to pay a lot of money and to go through so many different tests, and it's just much easier if you do it in your home country and translate it back. So
One thing I heard, like I know one guy, he was not in Tokyo, was not an easy part, but what he did, he's an American. What he did, you know how like the train conductors here, like every time like the train stops and just like they point at things. Okay, I've done this, I've done that. That light is green, that light is red. Okay, I'm done. Like he's saying everything out loud and he's pointing everything, right?
right.
So that I forgot the name of that method or system, but it was developed by a Japanese man who was a conductor, like many decades ago. Um, and what was it like? I think he went deaf at some point,
Mm,
so he started doing that for like a visual and well, I guess he still had internal hearing. So all those reminders to be sure he was doing his job, like he had like had that indicator to his brain, like okay, I've done this, I saw that, I can do it. So what my friend did when he did the driving exam in Japan, like I'm not sure exactly how it was happening there, but you have to stop at a certain place, and you have to do this and that, whatever. So anything that had to be done, he would point and say it out loud.
Okay.
So like for example, at a stop, you have to wait 3 seconds. It would say 1, 2, 3, and he said everything out loud. Even the guy running the tests told him like, you don't have to do this. He did it anyway. He did it anyway, and he got the test on his first run. He got the certificate on the first run. He
Yeah.
passed right away.
Yeah. I've seen that. There was I was riding one one of the things for the driving test at least is you have to ride with somebody else who's doing their driving test,
Hmm.
and which I think is normal in many countries. But the guy who I was riding with was this guy was happened to be from China. I only know because he told me, but he almost seemed like he had practiced this on his own so many times that it was just muscle memory. So he would every time he would signal, he would like everything was just super snappy, quick, and just almost robotic in the way he was moving. And I'm not sure if or not, but it was definitely odd seeing someone just mechanically go through the motions of what they were expected to do. Like he really studied this and just went through all the motions, and I just thought, I bet you he's probably going to pass this time. Just it was just a hunch because judging because the Japanese instructor was sitting back just marking stuff in his book, and he was just had this look on his face like, oh, you know. So yeah, it's an ordeal, and once it was done, I was just like, thank fuck, I don't have to ever go through that again. Most
Hey,
likely,
seven times the charm, right?
yeah, yeah, and because at least in Tochigi they you on how many you have to get a certain number of points
Okay.
and you pass, right? So always your first time, from what I've been told, always your first time. If you get any points, you'll get 20 points. I think you need 75 to pass, and I think I got 20 or 30, which I thought okay, but I still have to take it again. The second time I got a few more, and then the third time at the very end, I was pulling into the lane, and at the very last minute, the instructor says, "Oh, sorry, no, no, go over to this way." And so, because he was the way he said it, just almost in a panic, like he forgot something. I didn't jerk the wheel, but I did it quicker than someone normally would, and I got a zero score all the way back down to zero because he said I panicked and almost wrecked the car or something. I'm like, really? Okay. So
That
I kind
sounds like a money game to me. I don't know, but
I almost gave up at that point. I said, no, fuck them. I'm gonna prove to them that I'm not a shitty driver. And they knew I was a good driver because normally when you first get a license in Japan, you have on your car you have to put like this green and yellow beginner's magnet on your car,
yeah.
and they were going to give it to me for free. And the guy at the window told me, he goes, because you've been driving in the States for more than 15 years at this point, you don't need one of these for your car. And I said, then, and just in my head I was just thinking, then why the fuck did I have to take 7 tests if you knew,
Yeah, exactly.
after the first or second try, you see what kind of driver I actually am. So, but
That's
and
terrible.
and and all the rules that they tell you to follow at the school, just by experience, at least in Utsunomiya, no one really follows that. I mean, people follow the basic don't kill people sort of rules for the most part, but all the smaller little rules about how you need to stop once and then pull up a little bit more and stop again and then pull up a third time and look again. That's no one does that. So it's kind of bullshit. So, but in order to pass the test, you have to follow all those rules. But
Well, I'll keep that in mind if I pass it.
yeah, like I said, you're Canadian, so you wouldn't even really have to go through any of that. So,
Yeah.
um, so you said Canada wasn't you kind of didn't really feel like you belonged in Canada anymore. Is that right? That was kind of
Well,
motivating
I
for you
mean,
to move.
like belonging. We all want to belong at some point, but yeah, I grew up in like well, I already said New Brunswick, and okay, where I grew up, you basically just have a bunch of like rednecks, but like the French version of them. Okay,
Wow, French
so I
rednecks.
guess like so the coup rouge.
Yeah.
Nah. So so I mean like really where I grew up like everybody was listening to country. They all wanted to like build like some stupid cars and stuff like that, you know. And a lot of people like nature there. They like especially my family. They all love camping. I fucking hate it.
Hmm.
I hate it with a passion. Okay, and that sort of thing. So like there was that. Also, I got bullied a lot in school because I was always thinking different. I guess I was also aligned with my like way of doing things with diversity, for example. So that sort of thing. So I guess with all this, at some point I'm like, well, not that I hate Canada, but at the same time, like, it's not like I'm missing out a lot if I go elsewhere.
Right. Yeah.
That was the main thing. So it's just like I was before moving to Japan, I was in Ottawa, and Ottawa was awkward for me because with my history back in New Brunswick, like I grew up I grew up becoming that person who was always was always on his own, you know, always by myself. And because of that, I didn't really know how to deal with people. It sounds kind of weird to say it that way, but
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I was just like always awkward, or like I was trying really hard to fit in or to be like to at least have a conversation. So sometimes I would make like really but really awkward jokes or like that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it took me years to finally like not only like meet people and like and to a point where I'm like okay I'm okay with myself. I'm okay like meeting with people and those people are okay with me. It took me so much time for that. It's not until I came to Japan actually that happened. So in Ottawa, I remember like I was super awkward. Like people didn't want to see me at all. I had very few friends. Uh, so that sort of thing. I actually started meeting Japanese people, and you would think that having an interest in Japan and like learning Japanese would help. Nope.
Really. Yeah.
Because the Japanese who met me in Canada, like they did not like me for the most part. You know, I
Huh.
have a couple of friends, yes, but a lot of them like were like, oh, like they were they were like talking in my back. I don't know what they were saying. Uh, Maybe some of them said I had yellow fever or something, or maybe they just thought I was like that, typical white guy who likes Karate Kid or something like that. I don't know
Yeah.
what
Like.
they were saying. I don't know what, but they did not like me at all. So, and I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So I came here, and you know, with all that being said, like obviously I'm not missing much from Canada. So I'm like, well, fuck, I might as well try somewhere else. So I came here, and like, of course, at the beginning was like still like, oh shit, like not only am awkward, now I have to deal with that strange culture and language that I basically don't know very much about. I know some stuff, but not much.
Right.
And it's weird to say that. I moved here when I was what, like I was 27, I guess. Um, and it's not until I moved here that I finally became an adult. It
Yeah.
sounds so stupid, but
No. No. Yeah. I completely relate to that. I understand. Yeah.
yeah, because like I finally had to deal with stuff on my own. I didn't have my family. My mom has like really strong like border issues, like boundary issues. I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
she
Border issue. Is she like
border
Trump?
issues. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like Trump. She's making a wall everywhere she goes.
Yeah.
Uh, no, like she was like kind of mother was like she was putting the mother back in its mother. Okay, she was like it
I
was
see.
like yes, she loves me, I love her, but at the same time, like you have to give me some space. But
It's
she was
like helicopter mom sort of thing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
almost yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so when I moved to Japan, like actually before I moved, she was saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm planning to go see you like in about like 4 months after you move." I'm like, "Nope. What do you mean no? Not you're just not coming."
Wow. Wow.
Like for like a year or two, I didn't even give her my address, nothing.
Mm.
Because I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to that country. Like I know some stuff, and like I know I'll get lost at some point, and I'll be awkward maybe sometimes. But at least I'll fucking learn, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not until I finally came here, and you have to deal with shit, man.
You do.
Like
Yeah.
as a foreigner, like you have like, I mean, for somebody living here, even for some people living here, is still kind of hard. Like, I mean, ask any Japanese like about pension. They don't know shit about pension here.
Yeah.
Nobody really understands it. Um, so that sort of thing, like you have to go find a job. You have to know like where to go to get those papers done for like your. And when I moved here was still the Gaikujin Toroku Shomeisho, so the
Mm.
foreigners card, right?
Alien card is what they called it,
Alien.
right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Alien registration card.
Yeah.
So you have to do all this. Like I didn't really have. Sure, I had some friends, but often you have to deal with stuff on your own. And
Yeah.
considering that I've also worked in a call center for like 4 or 5 years, I almost got PTSD from talking on the phone. So imagine you get a phone call and you have to speak in a foreign language. I'm like, shit, I don't know what to do with this, So you kind of panic. So, but I've went through it, and I'm glad I did because now, like, I know how to have my own life, how to be an adult. Like, it's weird to say this, but just getting that satisfaction that you're a grown-up man and you can live on your own and you don't need anybody else's help, like for the most part, is awesome.
Yeah, it's that's why for me at least I've credited moving to Japan as one of the best things I've ever done for my personal growth really because if I stayed in my small hometown in Texas, I would still live, I was already living on my own and everything before I even moved to Japan, but it was not until, as you said, not until I came here that I really became an adult, and and it's really jumping off the deep end in a way if you don't speak any of the language and you're learning it as you go, and that's something I did here. So everything that was new to me as just being an adult, I also had to learn how to do it in a different language. So going now, when I do go back home, everything almost feels a bit easier because I feel I've learned it in a foreign language, so it's almost easier to kind of do it in your native language, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, of
Yeah,
course. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
I totally get that. So yeah, like, and on top of that, when I went back to Canada, I just visited for a month last year. I know 2 years ago now, and like that visit made me realize how like I've sort of like outgrown my place in Canada. I'm not sure how to phrase it, but you know, I moved on, and so did my friends and family. Like I'm not there
yeah.
anymore. So everybody has their own family now. They all have kids. They all got married. My parents got divorced, and my father remarried. Um, my sister married twice. That sort of thing. And you go there, and like people don't really like. Sure, like some of my friends, like they're very good friends of mine, so we had an awesome time together. But for the rest, it's like they don't really care that you came. Like I mean,
Yeah.
like especially in Ottawa, where like I didn't have like that many friends there to start with. Like I went there and I called people up. Like I said, hey, you want to hang out or something? It's been long. It's been like 8 years in the time I called, and they're just, oh, I'm kind of busy. Like
Yeah, they
don't
haven't
give a
seen you
shit.
in years, and you're like, hey, I'm back in the country. I spent all this money to fly and come see everyone. Do you want to hang out? Nah. You're just like, okay.
Nah,
Well,
they don't really care that much, and it's
yeah,
just like, okay, well, it makes you feel like not that you should be important because you came from elsewhere, but it's also like, wow, like what will it take to finally make you give a shit about whatever friendship I thought we had?
yeah, that's exactly it. You find out people who really do sort of care about you when you encounter something like that. I've only had a handful of friends and family even come and visit me in Japan. I mean, I understand it's expensive to fly over here. But so when they say, "Well, why don't you come back here?" I say, "Well, it costs just as much for me as it does for you, really. You know." So that's uh, that's one thing. But I really appreciate those who have come over here to visit because it just shows that how much they actually do care about. To those who say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna come visit you. Or I want to come visit you," but they never follow through
Yeah,
with it. You just think,
they never do it.
yeah,
No,
they just never follow through.
because
You know?
I like my mom and sister came together. Um, to be honest, it was nice to see them, but I would have also liked that time with my sister.
Right.
Just me and my sister, which I never had. It was like because like I was saying earlier, boundary issues, right? My mom was always there,
Yeah.
always had to watch and whatever. Um, but like my father never came. Boy, I wish he did. Like I would have really loved for him to come. He never did that.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of my friends too. Like I mean, you probably have that really close circle of friends back in the States, and it's like, and you think of them sometimes, and you're like, man, imagine the shit we'd do together if we were here right now in Japan. Like
Exactly.
we'd
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
we'd had a fucking blast. But they never come. They never come. You'll never see them. They will never come. Um, and sometimes, like, yes, a bit like you, like some who actually came and took the time. Like I mean, they're on a vacation, so you don't expect you don't always expect them to make time for you, but they do.
Yeah.
And meet them, it's like, wow, you really appreciate it. But what hurts the most is like when you see like I thought I had some good friends in Ottawa, and many of them came, never rang a bell,
Really.
never seen it. Yeah, like it's just you see them like a week later on Facebook. Oh, they were in Japan for like a month. I didn't know,
Yeah. And they
and it's
know,
not like it.
and they
Yeah.
know you live in Japan, and
Well,
they
obviously, I've
didn't,
been there
yeah,
for years, and they
yeah,
comment on your stuff too, right? It's not like if they don't know,
right, yeah,
and it's just like that fucking hurts. It really hurts. It's like you're like, wow, you didn't bother to come see me like at all. I mean, not even to come see me. I could have gone to wherever you were and just hang out. But
yeah. I mean, if I knew people from back home who came all the way to Japan, but for example, they were in Osaka or something, somewhere far, if I had the, if I had, even if it was just on a weekend, I would try and go and see them because they've traveled further than I could, but if they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
even mention anything, you're just like, well, okay, whatever. So,
yeah. That's kind of the sad part, and that's what you get when you move here. I mean, like we're all a little bit like this. When we move here, we realize that oh, those things happen, and it changes a lot in your life, and you realize that like I was saying before, you moved on and they moved on as well.
yeah,
I mean, some people will still think of you. Some people just like they don't really care. Like they're just like, oh well, you're out of their life now.
yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah, yeah, and I've seen, I mean, people that I hung out with in university before I came over here, I just really keep in contact with one, and he's been my best friend since elementary school. So I mean, it's a given that they would still be around, and he's really the only one that's come over here to visit. So that's that shows the true friend out of that whole circle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you've been lucky to have somebody like that. It's not
yeah,
everybody who has that. In my case, like well, I was saying earlier, I was often like awkward and bullied in school, so I didn't really make any friends until I got I think high school.
right,
Um, and even like I'm thinking of like there's one friend like I met in high school, and through like we both went to the same college and stuff, so we made friends together. And now we have that small circle of like 4 people, no 5. So of course I always hung out with them when I was back in New Brunswick 2 years ago, and but even there, like none among them ever came to Japan. They didn't even try. That's That's kind of sad, you know. Like it's you wish you want to like experience that life here with them, you know. You want to share that experience, but you don't have the chance to do so.
Right.
I mean, sure you can talk about it on Facebook Messenger and send videos or do like live, like you can live like a video chat like we do right now, but it's not the same as being in person, you know.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely not the same. It's definitely
You
not the
know,
same. Yeah. But I've gotten to the point now where I appreciate the people who show appreciation to me. You know, I mean, it's a mutual thing, and those who don't, you know, like, okay, there's only so far I can communicate with you, so it doesn't. I don't let it bother me anymore. Is what I'm trying to say. You know, like
well, no, after so like,
yeah, it's like you as you say, you move on. You're just like, all right, well, I guess we know where we stand in that regard. So,
well,
you
yeah,
know,
I mean, like maybe you went through that too. Like when I moved to Japan, like the first year, the first couple of months was like almost every weekend, like call people back home, that sort of thing, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And then, you know, when you move, like you're just settling in, right? And after a while, well, you know, you find a job and you finally move in somewhere, you settle a little bit, you know, and but you get busy as you try to settle in. And when that happens, like you sometimes you skip some weekends, sometimes you cannot meet anybody, you know, right away and whatnot. And after a while, you realize, wait, like when I don't call them, they never call me.
yep,
So, you know, and so even like to the point where like even I'm actually just the holidays. Even my dad didn't bother trying to say like, "Hey, Happy New Year," nothing at all. You know, just like, "Oh, well, that's the way it is then." I just like stopped being the one trying to reach out and say, "Hey, how's it going?" You know, trying to call them and all that. Because I realized when I don't do it, they don't care. They don't call me or anything. So
yeah,
why do I care? So
right,
I stopped. You know.
yeah. I mean, it's just gotta say, all right, that's it. You know, and the people who you communicate with, those are the people you know, just one day you wake up and you see that they've sent you a text or something, and or you know, and even that is just sort of
Yeah.
like, hey, at least they're thinking about me, you know. So that's the people that you make the effort to keep in that you make the effort to keep in touch with, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also like you have that effect where like when you just moved in for the first couple of years, actually up like for me it's up until recently, I would say up to 8 years. Like your circle of friends, the circle of people you hang out with, it is always changing. It's always like cycling because you meet so many people that are a little bit like you. They just arrived here, and many of them will just leave Japan at some point. You
Yeah,
know. And that's what happens. Like when you're a long-term resident, it changed a lot. I mean, these days, like I don't even bother meeting people who just arrived in Japan because I know they're just gonna leave anyway. Now I just hang out with people who just have been here for a while, like you or like Kevin on the chat right now.
yeah,
Um, because I know, like, we all know we're here to stay anyway. So it's not like I'm trying to actively seek out or actively like, filter out people who are not meeting that criteria. It's just the way it is. Because you just get tired at some point of always like having to rebuild your circle of friends every year.
it does get tiring, right?
Yeah.
And you know, especially if you have a significant other or a spouse in Japan, you sometimes you spend years with them, and then if you're like, okay, now what do I do on weekends or something? Like if you haven't either maintained a certain or whatever circumstance, you know you're almost left like, okay, now I'm back to square one, and
Oh,
it's made it is more difficult when you're older to make good friends, you know. So
it, like definitely like I've always kind of been like a lone wolf
yeah,
because of the bullying and all that stuff back in Canada, and you kind of come. How can I say this? You become sort of like a friend with loneliness for some reason. Sometimes you feel lonely and you don't like it. Sometimes you just want that solitude,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And So for me, I need that balance. Sometimes I need my me time, but sometimes I need to meet people. Like
Right.
if one of those times is getting too long, I go crazy. So yeah, yeah, in Japan is like like after you've been here for a while, you just keep those that you've been with for the longest time, and that's pretty much it, I would say. Um, yeah, like I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, no,
Sorry, yeah.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, and it's what what I've noticed is you can, at least for me, I can spot other foreigners here who've been here a long time and those who are fresh off the boat or fresh off the plane, so to speak, because
Oh
I
my God.
and even from a distance, just how they're carrying themselves, but I I used to not do this, but now I try and make an effort. If I see another foreigner walking down the street, I'll say hello, and judging by their response, I can tell if if they're a long termer or not. Usually, the long term people will say hello back and will have a nice chat. The people who are usually pretty fresh, completely ignore you. Completely ignore you. Like they don't want to even acknowledge another foreigner
Oh
as
really?
past. Yeah,
Okay.
at least that's my experience. Um, Now I'm not saying all. Obviously, I don't know every single foreigner. Actually, I really have stopped hanging around a lot of other foreigners in the city. Not because I don't want to or I'm stuck up or anything. It's just I just don't know anyone, and I can't really relate to a lot of people here now. Because they're most of the foreign population in this city are either auto mechanic engineers with different schedules than mine, or people who are fresh off the plane who are a different generation than me. So it's just really hard to relate to in many aspects. So
Yeah, like it's like I know some, like, especially if it's somebody like I don't know, they're kind of like managing communities. So they made, like, let's say, like I don't know, like a coffee shop that attracts a lot of foreigners. I guess in that case, they're kind of good at renewing themselves and, like, not like being able at, like, meeting people of, like, doesn't matter for how long they've been in Japan, right?
right,
But for the average person like me and you, I think it's a lot harder, like, you know, because you meet that person who just arrived last week and everything is new for them and Japan is so wow. And you just, like, you want to bring them back down to earth, but they won't let you to.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, well, you know, that's what it is in Japan. Like I make jokes about Japan all the time on Facebook and all, and I have one friend, like, she's always saying, like, are you sure you really like Japan because you bitch about Japan all the time? And she's Japanese,
yeah,
and she's a big fan of London. She lived
okay,
there before,
yeah.
and I just turned around and said, like, you love London, right? It's like, yeah. Have you, like, you've never had any complaint about London for, like, the 6 years you lived there, really? And it's like, oh, okay, I see your point.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so yeah,
going on that. Sorry to interrupt, but
it's okay.
people who they think, oh, you love Japan so much you moved there, that means you can never complain at all about anything about the country, or else, oh, you hate Japan now, right? No, no, it's like,
Fuck that. You
yeah,
can have criticism of anything.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't still be living in Japan if I didn't love living here, if I didn't love certain aspects of this country. But if the negatives outweigh the positives, I would just say fuck it and move somewhere else. I mean, it's that simple for me. But I don't want to move out of Japan right now. So, but that doesn't mean that I can't complain or I can't find something that I don't like about this country and not express my opinion about it. Yeah.
Makes me think of that idea about, like society and outcasts. I've always thought they were kind of really funny ideals, or rather concepts, because, like to use an example, like, okay, let's say you have a pedophile in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
People don't like pedophiles usually. He's an outcast.
usually, usually, right?
Usually,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Well, in Japan, maybe that's different.
it's a
But
gray
anyway,
zone.
okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe it's not the best example, but anyway. So he's an outcast. Okay,
right.
outcast. But want it or not, he's still part of that society of yours,
Yeah,
and you have to deal with it.
yeah,
Okay. So that brings me back to us. It's like in Japan, it's always been foreigners and Japanese.
yeah,
They're clear on that division. But that they accept you or not, or that you want it or not, you're still part of the society,
exactly. Yeah,
you know? So that they like it or not, you can still have criticism about anything. There are some things about Japan I don't like. There's some things that I do. That doesn't mean I should be moving out.
right.
Like living in Japan doesn't mean you have to love everything about Japan. Shit, as a Japanese, they don't love everything about Japan either. So like yeah, the mentality where like especially like when you have like kind of like presumptuous foreigners here, they're like, "Oh, you don't like it? Go back home." Like I actually never heard a Japanese tell me this. It's always foreigners.
Yeah,
You know?
the question you'll get from Japanese is when are you going home? But that's not really
Yeah, so
they're
yeah,
not
it's not a topic. Yeah.
yeah, they don't really mean when leaving my country, you barbarian. It's more like they're just where I think a lot of it comes from is they're just curious about they think it's surprising that you would choose to live in Japan, which for them is just normal, and it, they say, why don't you go back to your home or whatever? And I'm just like, nope,
Well,
not this time.
now I can sort of understand because there's some Japanese, for example, when I take the train in the morning and it's super crowded, nobody likes that shit.
Yeah,
Okay? So when like one of them running that train like sees a foreigner and they say like, "Oh, I'm planning to stay here forever." It's like, "Why?" Like it's shit. Like I feel they want to phrase it that way, they just can't. But yeah, like, so I can sort of see it from that perspective. Uh, but yeah, it's just like that division between Japanese and foreigners always been there. Like even when I make home parties at my place, a few times I got some Japanese coming over, and you know what to expect. You'll always have the Japanese corner and the Gaijin corner. It's
yeah.
always that fucking way, and I hate it. I hate that shit so much
It's like
because
junior high level stuff.
it's junior high. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's like high school shit, and it is totally against my vision on diversity. If you're diverse, you fucking mix in.
yeah, yeah,
You don't like exclude yourself. Like it's almost presumptuous. It's like, oh well, we're Japanese, so we're not good enough. Like you're not good enough for us. Um, Even back in Canada, like I met Japanese people coming on their working holiday visa to study English, but they always hang out among Japanese people
and speak
and
Japanese.
and speak Japanese, and then they go on trips and road trips here and there across the country, and they've never learned English for shit. It's
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous.
yeah. I I
Yeah.
no, I mean, I totally get that. Um, I understand. I know exactly where you're coming from on that. I think a lot of it though is also it's not just people, but that's the closest thing. If you're in a foreign land that and you're fresh into the foreign land, you want to find something that kind of anchors you back to home in some way, because
Mhm.
it's a comfortable thing, and so I think that's why people tend to gravitate towards either their fellow countrymen or whatever. Not to say that they should. I agree with you. If you're going to go to a different country, you should mingle with as many different people as you can. But some people they like that comfort in finding the familiarity. They're
Oh yeah, yeah, for
you know
for sure. You have. I guess I'm just getting upset at people always staying in the comfort zone, and not
yeah
just in that aspect, like almost anything.
yeah
Because I've always been somebody for change and for diversity, right? Um, so of course, if I visit a foreign country, like of course, even in Japan, if I meet a Canadian, I'm pretty happy about it. Like it's not like if I'm gonna say "fuck you, you're Canadian, you like me, so I don't want to see you."
Right.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do that. Um,
Yeah.
actually, I'd be like I've met sometime last year some Canadians from the Maritimes, from like Nova Scotia and
Mm.
I think PI. And it was like, wow, like that's I was pretty impressed. Like I usually never see that.
Right.
So of course, like I spent some time to speak with them. Um, but yeah, like it's just like that division you always get because like back in Canada and I'm sure maybe some like many parts in the States, um, like let's take for example citizenship. Okay, if I was becoming a naturalized Japanese, can I even call myself Japanese? Even if I have the goddamn passport, you know?
Right.
And a lot of Japanese people would argue that you're not really Japanese. You got a paper saying you are, but you're not really.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and I told to many Japanese, I'm like, that's funny because if you go in Canada and you're a naturalized Canadian, no one would fucking argue that you're Canadian.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, because you have Canadians of all backgrounds, and I've met plenty of Japanese Canadians, and boy, they're different from Japanese people. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's
Well,
a
yeah.
different kind.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, I work with a Japanese woman who she lived in Canada, and I think her husband still lives there.
Okay.
He runs a Japanese restaurant in Vancouver, but her children were raised for years in Canada, and so but now they're in Japan, but they are very Western. I mean, like you talk to them, their English is fluent because I mean they grew up speaking English mostly, and just their mindset is very I wouldn't say Canadian, but just very Western mindset, you know. And to other Japanese people, they would say, "Oh, they're not Japanese." Just even though they were born in Japan and they live in Japan and they have Japanese passport, all that, but oh, they spent formative years in Canada, so they're not truly Japanese anymore, you know.
That's so
Yeah.
terrible. Like the Japanese, like they a lot of them go against so much, like anything that's monogenous. You know, like they want
Hmm.
everything to be monogenous,
Yeah.
and I think it's their loss because you have so much to gain from diversity. I think. You know, when you live in a place where like everything is the same, you just live in that resonance cone where like you just whatever you say must be correct. You know, like so you just like reward yourself by saying anything or doing anything. You know, and no, like it's too bad that Japan doesn't see that. You know, they don't want to take diversity back in their country.
Yeah. But they're going to have to eventually. I mean, they're they're facing a crisis with you know, labor crisis and people, you know, not being able to pay pensions and whatnot. So they're you know, they're having to invite, I guess, more unskilled foreign labor into the country. So the future of Japan is going to be a lot more diverse than many Japanese are probably comfortable with. But that's just the reality of it, you know.
You know,
Yeah.
like I want to agree with you, but at the same time, like the Japanese are pretty good at Japanizing,
Yeah.
and a bit like even Western civilizations sort of did this, especially during colonization. I mean, where like they kind of impose their culture on some of the people. Japan will probably do that. You know, like okay, well maybe we'll get more Vietnamese, they say, but at the same time, make sure you make them the most Japanese you can. You
Yeah.
know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like sort of like tongue in cheek sort of movement. It's like okay, we'll accept more foreigners, but the only reason why we want to get more foreigners in the country is for like for them to pay taxes and pension. So you know, it's like I'm not sure how they're gonna deal with that.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, it's certainly something that will be interesting to watch in the next few years, especially next year. See how Japan deals with the influx of foreign tourists with Olympic. You know, that's the topic on everyone's mind right now is the Olympics. The Olympics. I know they've even started changing stop signs around here to include the English word "stop" on them. Yeah. Just
Like
a few.
it wasn't obvious enough, you know.
Yeah, there's just a few of them though, and they seem to be like really out in the country where nobody goes. I'm thinking, what's the purpose of changing this one? Why not change the ones in the city first and then move out that way? But
Maybe it's a
yeah,
test run.
yeah, it well, or it just could be the city doesn't give a shit, and they're like, well, we have to have a certain number of these ones with stop signs, but fuck it, let's just do random ones. Who knows? But
Yeah, yeah, could be
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, anyways, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Very, very insightful. I liked the game talk a lot. That was good to see um, your your thoughts on that and everything. So, I appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and
Yeah,
yeah, like I'm glad I finally got into the onto your show because we rescheduled so many times, but
yeah.
uh, yeah. So I guess we'll keep in touch after this.
Okay, yeah, and
Yes.
of course you're welcome back anytime. So, if just to let the viewers know and the listeners know, where can people find you on the interwebs itself?
Yeah. Well, these days I haven't done much videos last year, but you can still check out youtube.com/remino. Yeah, I have a short name, a short URL because I signed up on YouTube in 2006.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, so I make like just like dumb videos here and there. I've been doing videos for 20 years. I wouldn't really consider myself a YouTuber because I've always done videos in some form or matter, you know.
Right.
There's that, and also I like doing some bits of photography, so I just post that stuff on Instagram. So same username, so instagram.com/remino.
Mm-hmm.
So I just post stuff there. There's also Twitter and Facebook, but Twitter on I kind of just complain, and Facebook I just post jokes. So feel free to try to follow me on Twitter. Facebook I don't accept all friend requests. It's kind of more like VIP sort of thing, but
Yeah.
start with YouTube and Instagram. We'll see from there.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll include links in the show notes below. So, anyway, thanks, Remy, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thank you. Have a
Okay.
good one.
All right.